All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Oh, yeah. It is the last day of the month on this Tuesday. Mark here in the home I grew up in. I mean, the magic. When I think about all the years, all the time wasted in this house. I am back in Washington, D.C., where I grew up. And this is the house that my parents live in. My dad's in the hospital in some tough times right now, but we're all here as best we can be, doing different things and trying to tend to the situation. So it is a pleasure to be with you. And Kim is here, everybody. Yes, Kim McAllister, who will provide an important update in a moment. Albert is here as well, everyone. So what can I say? Albert, we love you. Thank you for riding herd over everything. I will get to I will get to, I know the shadow of the Niners loss is still extending over us, and I will get to an important piece of information about Tom Brady. There is a way that he could end up coming back to the Bay Area in Northern California where he grew up. We'll get to that.
I expected to see more snow on the ground behind you.
There is no snow. That is rain behind me. Maybe the shot makes it look like snow.
No, it's like
what?
Yeah.
The temperature here is in the 40s. That's the high temperature, and it gets down into the 30s, but not really below freezing in the city. Some of the outlying suburbs a little bit lower. This is the Washington D.C. area, as I was saying. So you've got Virginia and Maryland as the suburbs, but the no, it's just sucky. This is exactly as I remember it when I was a kid. It's just sucky weather here. This is, they have beautiful green lawns here, and there is, as you drive down some of the streets in Washington, D.C., the streets that are inhabited by lobbyists and political talking heads. And
there's never been anything like this.
You see that it looks like a magical place, I have to say this. And even though it's not springtime, in the spring and fall, Washington is stunning, okay? You have the cherry blossoms, you have all of these wondrous vistas in Washington, okay? Because like San Francisco, there are a lot of monuments and they are sculpted within the landscape in such a gorgeous way. But you have to remember the summer here is insufferable. It's humid as hell. There are tons of mosquitoes and gnats, these things that, they collect around your head. When I was a kid, we used to hold our hand up above our head because gnats go to the highest point on the body. And you know what? It worked. Like literally, you'd see a bunch of people standing there with a fist in the air, and it was just to attract the gnats so that they wouldn't collect around your face. It was awful. I was a camp counselor at an inner city camp when I was a teenager here in Washington, D.C. I don't know how I did it. It was 95 degrees with humidity of 90% or something like that. It was disgusting. Yeah, but when you're a teenager, it's uncomfortable, but somehow it doesn't bother you as much. Yep. Now I have to be in a climate-controlled environment all the time.
Please set the thermostat to 68 degrees.
Yes. So, no, that's not snow. It is rain. It is wet. It is cold. And that, my friends, is Washington for most of the winter. Now, they do get some big snows here and all the rest. It's funny because my dad, who, as I mentioned, is really struggling right now, is in the hospital. He used to shovel this is when he was in his 80s. Now he's 92. When he's in his 80s, he used to shovel the front walk and driveway when there was snow. And I said, Dad, please don't do that. I mean, there's so many other people who can do it. And my dad isn't some machismo, toxic masculinity dude either. He was just doing it out of utility. Like he just needed to get it done. Then finally, some neighbors, and I think there's a service that comes up here and does it
Yeah.
now. I mean, and so,
But I hear him why he would want to do that, because I feel like sometimes if you don't use it, you lose it. So
yeah,
getting out there, moving those muscles, probably good for his body.
I really, I don't know if you thought it through that way, but you're right. I mean, there's no disputing what you're saying. So
Yeah.
now, Kim,
Yes.
before I get to your story, I want to just mention Pulitzer winner David Cay Johnson joins us in the 11 o'clock hour. Some of you have asked me, and you can reach the show at themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. You've asked about Bill Barr. Clearly, Bill Barr was a hatchet man for Trump. And what new revelations have really described is his weaponization of the Justice Department. I'll let David Cay Johnston get into that in the 11 o'clock hour. But what I wanted to mention to you is several of you have asked, can Bill Barr be prosecuted for anything he did at the Justice Department? I think the answer is no, but I will ask the question to David Cay Johnston.
Yeah.
And then the question of hush money paid to Stormy Daniels. It was one of the first Trump scandals that rocked his administration. I mean, apart from the utter incompetence and clear malfeasance and grift that seemed to inhabit that administration right from the start, that was the high profile scandal. Now it's like deja vu all over again. That may be the first case that's brought against Trump in New York. So we're going to talk to David about that as well. And lastly, and I want to get to, again, all of this in the 11 o'clock hour with David Cay Johnston, I want to talk about the erosion of faith in government institutions and in public institutions. And I include the media in that. And I think there are a lot of reasons, and some of the reasons may actually relate back to COVID and the handling of COVID. And I want to include that in our conversation as well. So, wow, there's a lot to talk about with David Cay Johnson. I think it'll be a real juicy conversation in the 11 o'clock hour. So I hope you'll be around for that. I'll get to Tom Brady in a moment. And as I say, also some notable passings, we'll get to those as well. But Kim,
Yeah.
for those who weren't here yesterday, I'll just remind everyone that Kim's son, a sweet 9-year-old lad, was in class and apparently put a "please kick me" sign on. Was it a girl? I assume it was a girl, or was it another boy?
it was another boy in class.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. At least there's that. And he was called into the principal's office over this.
That's right. It was a friend, by the way, and he says he was just joking. But yeah, so he puts a "kick me" sign on the back of his buddy on PE, and the PE coach sees it. No, she says, and sends him to the office.
Wow.
And so he's in trouble. So I get a note from the teacher during the middle of the show. Your son has done this "please kick me" thing. So I pick him up from school. He gets in the car, and I say, "Hey, buddy, how was your day?" He goes, "Oh, it's fine."
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
He had it loaded. He had that loaded. It was wrong, it was stupid, but he didn't open with that. He opened with everything was fine. That was a great day.
It's totally fine. I said, "Oh, nothing happened today?" "Nah, it's fine." I said, "So getting called to the principal's office is nothing?" His eyes get wide and he looks at me like, "Uh-oh, she knows." He says, "How do you know
Wild
that?"
idea, but it just might work.
I said,
You got to say no. Stonewall it until they get you, right?
"Because I know everything, buddy. Everything. There's nothing you can do in this world that I'm not going to hear about." And like, that is not nothing. He's like, "Why were you just not going to tell me that you placed a sign that said 'kick me' on another student?" He said, "Well, I was really trying to avoid this whole conversation here." I'm like, "You what?"
That's a great line. Mom, I really was trying to avoid this whole conversation.
This whole thing that's happening right here. I was just trying to avoid this whole thing.
Oh my God, that's just great.
He's
I love that.
hilarious. So yeah, it turns out he had already had to write a apology note to the child at school. He also, by the way, wrote one to his teacher, which is nice. And I think that I think it's been handled at home. No video games all week long. if there were ever going to be any allowed. There won't be. So,
It's it's so interesting and funny and weird and a sign of the times. And I think I just glanced down and I think some people made reference to sort of a similar thing. I thought, wow, it's interesting that the let that be the worst thing that happens in this school. I'm so used to, oh my
right?
God, the school was on lockdown. Some kid came to class with a weapon he got from his parents or whatever. So I mean, only a kick me sign. I mean, I feel like isn't that quaint?
Well,
You
I
know?
said, if the child had actually been kicked, you could have gotten someone hurt. And he's like, "Yeah, I didn't think about that. I
Yeah.
was kidding around." And I said, "Well, did the student, did the other boy forgive you for it?" He said, "Yeah, I gave him an apology note and he kind of smiled. So I think everything's okay." Like, okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Yeah, he should it sounds
Everything.
like he may want to get good at writing those apologies, Kim. I mean no offense by that.
No, no.
I'm just saying that he likely might get probably won't be his last encounter with
My
having to write an
bad. I'm
apology.
sorry.
Likely not.
Yeah, you
Likely
may want to.
not.
Yeah, this is the show for him because we have the full range of apologies available. We have the View apologies, we have the ESPN apologies. We have the Cuomo apologies. I do hug and kiss people casually.
Yes.
It was
So,
wrong, it
anyway.
was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
The Tubin apology is the
That's
very
probably the
best.
best one. Yeah, that's
that
strong.
is that is the gold standard for apologies. All right, Stinger, please, Albert.
Or not.
The Mark Thompson Show.
You see that Cindy Williams passed away from Laverne and
Yeah.
Shirley? Yeah, 75 years old. Am I wrong? That's young to me.
That to me is young too. And what's interesting is I think Penny Marshall was the same age when she passed away.
Hmm. Uh, It's the passing of our kind, hilarious mother, Cindy Williams, has brought us insurmountable sadness that could never truly be expressed, said a statement from the kids. She starred in American Graffiti,
Yeah.
which was the George Lucas movie, and was it shot in Petaluma? Or when
Yes,
was it
it
shot?
was. As a matter of
Yeah,
fact, we have American Graffiti Days here to celebrate every year.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Um, she had a brief illness, apparently. Of course, I was mentioning American Graffiti. She was also in a movie which some of you may have seen. It was a Coppola movie, actually, called The Conversation. It was 1974. So, and it wasn't, I don't think it was a heralded movie at the time, but subsequently, I think it was perhaps, it got a little more attention in the years after it was released. But, Laverne and Shirley is what really launched
She's
her into the public
Shirley.
consciousness.
Everybody
Yeah,
knows her as
yeah,
Shirley,
yeah.
I,
That
I
was
was
a spinoff
watching
from Happy Days, of course. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
was watching this TMZ interview yesterday with her, where this kid just comes up to her on the street that works for TMZ and starts throwing questions at her. And she happens to be walking down some street in Los Angeles with a friend. And it would have made me mad. I'm not even anyone, right? But if someone walked up to me and had a camera and started asking questions, it would have been like, what? Whoa. I mean, I'll give you the interview, but let's, make an
Well, it would
appointment.
depend on the
Something.
questions, Kim. I mean, I don't know,
She just starts throwing. No, it was like, whoa. I mean, she's a celebrity. Whatever. So she stops and she answers all the questions and she's personable and she's nice. And it was just, she was such a class act about the whole thing that after the interview, I was thinking, wow, she just handled that so well, so nicely.
I hate to say it, but that's sort of the new media and the new environment.
Yeah.
They descend on you on the street. They descend on you coming out of a restaurant. They descend on you at, gate C15 at SFO or whatever. I mean,
No.
literally as you emerge from whatever, their TMZ or other paparazzi there to grab a soundbite or grab a picture. It just,
It's whatever happened to the whole, book an appointment, make a guest appearance on the Mark Thompson show so you're prepared. And
yeah,
I don't know.
they have those too, but I mean, it really is just, yeah. but she never really was in another vehicle after Laverne and Shirley. You know, I mean, when you think about it, I think that's a certainly, but you never need to work again after the success of Laverne and Shirley. The guy who wrote "I Heard It Through the Grapevine" passed away. Yeah, he was 81. His name is Barrett Strong. He wrote "Heard It Through the Grapevine." He wrote "Papa Was a Rolling Stone," the
Oh, yeah.
Temptation song. I mean, he wrote Edwin Starr's "War," and also wrote "I Wish It Would Rain" and "Just My Imagination." I mean, this guy, you talk about prolific and a hit maker.
What?
There he is. Yeah. Barrett Strong passes away at 81.
He gave us some good songs.
Wow. Really something. I just want to, before we move on from him, I want to just look at something about his life. He was a performer, and then he became a songwriter, and says, "I never felt comfortable with myself as a recording artist." He has 6 kids, grandfather of 13. "I had to work," he says, "to support my family. I'm not looking for the spotlight and all the glamour and stuff like that. I just like to work in my studio and see what we come up with." Wow. His writing partner was Norman Whitfield. Incredible body of work for the Temptations primarily,
Yep.
but really a Motown family that mourns his passing. Barrett Strong. And that Annie Wershing, you mentioned her, right?
Yesterday I did mention her, but if we're
Yeah.
talking about people that have passed, maybe it wouldn't hurt to do it again.
She's 45 years old. She passed away of cancer. And that's where we got into I went on my little rant about yesterday about the fact that there are all these carcinogens in the environment. I just was reading something else today about those PFAs or PFAS, however they're referred to. And those are the forever chemicals. They started as non-stick chemicals. They're on the inside of a lot of coating of different things. And I was talking about the fact that those alone have raised the levels of carcinogens in the environment to some, extreme levels. But
Yeah.
what they've now found, and so I didn't mean to get it, now I'm getting off on it again, but again, I'll just add this because this is just today. They've talked about the wrapping in fast food that has those PFAs on the wrapping. The idea was they don't need to use some of these other containers because they can actually put this special treatment on the paper, and in wrapping whatever the fast food is in that paper that has those chemicals on it, the benefit of the chemicals is the stuff doesn't stick to it and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
That creates an even greater presence of these carcinogens in the environment. I mean, they've been linked directly to disease. So all I'm suggesting when I was going my little rant yesterday and then mentioning it today as a little footnote is, the more and more of the stuff that is in the environment, the more and more I think we're going to see these cancers emerge and other diseases linked to these toxic chemicals. So the pro freestyle skier Kyle Smain dies. He died in an avalanche in Japan. He's from South Lake Tahoe.
Yeah. He's from here, from our neck of the woods, I should say.
Buried by a massive avalanche while backcountry skiing on a trip to Japan. Wow. The Tahoe dude was in Japan to promote ski travel in Japan. And he'd been posting video footage on Instagram of himself skiing in Japan's deep snow and endless powder. He was trying to, promote tourism there, skiing and snowboarding. And so he passes away in an avalanche.
He
Champion
was
freestyle skier. Yeah.
He was a 2015 world champion in the skiing of the half pipe. And he was doing some ski filming in Japan as well. He'd been sharing videos apparently on his Instagram account over the last week of all the fresh powder in Japan. He finished 9th in the ski half pipe at the 2016 Winter X Games in Aspen. In 2018, won the 5th and final U.S. Olympic qualifying series event in ski halfpipe, but then didn't make the team for Pyeongchang. So,
very sad, and a freak accident, and super sad. That, I believe, is everyone we needed to touch on, at least here at the beginning of the show. I give you a fork in the road now. I have marijuana news, or
where are my weed smokers at?
That sounds to me like we already have a vote. I also have I have Niners news. So I know. So Albert, I'll leave it to you to play the stinger and make the decision.
Let's just do the weed story. Yeah, let's take a little break from the Niners. It is some interesting news, but we'll get to it later in the show.
All right, good deal. All right, here's some
The Mark Thompson Show.
Here's some weed news for you. California's legal market is a tougher and tougher place to do business, to the point that
Isn't anybody but a weed?
relatives of Jerry Garcia, who, poster boy for Stonageville, they're pulling their cannabis brand out of California.
What?
High taxes and regulation are making it impossible for them to make a decent living here, they say.
There's never been anything like this.
There's a surge in black market weed. So we talked about this at length on other shows. When you put together the requirements to run a legal weed business, and you see so much business going to the black market where there are no requirements, it just gets very, very tough to make a living. Not to mention the fact that you don't have the federal government on your side when it comes to weed. There are these weird cross currents, so you're still not able to run a credit card business. I think there are a lot of things working against the weed business. That said, it can be insanely lucrative, but with all of the encumbrances that we have laid on the different businesses here in California, or you get the idea. A marijuana brand bearing the name of one of world famous stoners, Jerry Garcia, has pulled out of California.
That says something. Jerry Garcia's brand is leaving. What?
Yeah, exactly. Garcia Handpicked, it's called. Founded by the relatives of Grateful Dead guitarist Jerry Garcia. They removed their products and their operations from California. They say it's federal taxes and state laws that have left legitimate producers paying as much as 80% in taxes.
What?
To produce and sell marijuana, they say, jumping through all those hurdles, it's just too hard. Black market operations and illegal farms have managed to operate without legal barriers and undercut the efforts of legitimate business people. So they say, we just don't want to do business here anymore. Garcia Handpicked is leaving California. Scores of marijuana businesses could go bust in California, say experts, as years of operating at losses to keep ahead of regulations comes to a head. And the licensing and the requirements are tremendous, apparently. So say goodbye to, I thought I had one other pot story, didn't I? Where's the other pot story, Albert? Didn't I have another one?
There's one. Maybe there's more.
Well, anyway, that was the high profile one I wanted to get to. I want to take a quick second to acknowledge the stop you should make if you want to get your business on track to gain benefits from the government, gain a tax advantage when filing taxes with the government. That guy is Steve Moskowitz. Steve has been doing business in the Bay Area for over 30 years. And as I mentioned to you, he can do business anywhere in the country. So if you have a tax situation or even a business proposition, you're looking at creating a side hustle and you want to make sure that you don't get dinged by taxes, he'll make sure you don't get carved up. He'll do everything within the law to be your advocate. Steve Moskowitz is 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAXDEAL. And I've also mentioned to you before, this is a former cab driver. He's now, a really esteemed tax attorney and tax expert. I would encourage you to speak to him in the way you're comfortable. You don't need to worry about what you say, how you say it. Steve will listen to you. He's heard everything before, every problem, every situation, every predicament. No
matter how embarrassing you think it is, he's been there, done that.
Filed. I know what that's like. You haven't filed, couldn't come over the situation. You're on a fixed income. Talk to Steve. He may be able to help you. 888 tax deal. You can also find him online, MoskowitzLLP.com. Moskowitz is Moskowitz, MoskowitzLLP.com. I would play a stinger there myself, but I don't know. I don't
or not.
Don't have to.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Thank you. Very well done. Kim's news coming up, and then can I get to the 49ers and Tom Brady? Also, the situation with Brock Purdy and the conversation. I'll just make a quick little Niners package for you because there's a conversation around the fact that you have a star quarterback in the Niners organization already. What might happen with him? Why is everyone passing over that possibility on the way to Tom Brady and others? So, again, I'll tell you the way that Brady could end up a Niner. It's a real thing. Don't think you'll get Aaron Rodgers to the Niners. That's not a real thing. And then the star that's already there and the situation with Brock Purdy. All of that still to come. Now, I'll ask you for the first time. Smash that like button like a boss. Hit the thumbs up. Smash that like button.
Iron rod.
Hit us with a like, and it costs you nothing. So thank you. And at the end of this hour, or maybe after Kim's news, Albert will decide. We'll acknowledge so many of you who've already been so generous in leaving us super stickers and super chats. That's the way we raise money with every show. And of course, you can go to themarkthompsonshow.com, contribute on Patreon or PayPal to support the show that way as well. Thank you for being here. Last day of January. Thank you. Hallelujah. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Let's talk about Kari Lake. Haven't heard her name in a while, and yet here she is again. Why? Well, it would appear the top election official in Arizona wants the state's attorney general to investigate Republican Kari Lake. Now, you may remember that she lost her gubernatorial bid last year. Now there are questions she may have violated state law by publishing voter signatures on her Twitter account. This tweet in question has Lake making an unfounded claim that 40,000 ballots didn't match voter signatures that the state has on record. And then she posted a graphic that showed 16 voter signatures, alleging they didn't match. Well, that's against a state law that prohibits reproducing voter signatures unless you're either the voter in question or a legally authorized person. Violation of that state law, it's a felony. President Biden is set to end the COVID-19 national and public health emergencies. That is expected to happen in May. And what it means is that a lot of people could start having to pay for COVID-19 testing, also treatments and other things. So a lot of things we've taken for granted and expected to get for free may not be so free anymore. Here in the Bay Area, we are looking for another round of rain for Tuesday morning. Looks like we could get that through Wednesday as well. Rain returning to the forecast. Of course, our ground already wet from last time, so the chance for trees falling, etc., is always higher. But yes, so it's another round of rain for us here in the Bay Area. Let me get that picture off for you. I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. If you're looking for help with your taxes for the last 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for people, individuals, businesses, whatever your situation. Steve is the one to take care of it. He is at 888 Tax Deal. He's also at moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
I misspoke. And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Why are you yelling?
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
They pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
There's never been anything like this.
We've never seen anything like it before.
Nobody has ever put something like this together that I've ever seen.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
There is nothing in our history that quite compares to this.
I think I'm the most honest human being, perhaps, that God ever created.
God bless America. The end.
Someone did this to spoil our Christmas. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Sayonara, sucker!
You know what? Hell, you created havoc and chaos.
I don't think you should apologize for how you feel.
Do I hit it long? Is Trump strong? Huh?
Who is having that conversation?
Oh, yeah. I love it. Thank you, Albert. Love that stuff. That is Albert, who is on board, of course, our stalwart producer. Thank you, Kim. Thanks, all of you who have joined us this last day of the month. This is our remote broadcast, really. I'm here in Washington, D.C. My dad's in some tough spots so he's in the hospital, so I came back here to be with him, and we're still able to do the show from the home in which I grew up. So it's full of regret and shame. It's really great to be back.
It's the Mark Thompson ancestral residence.
It is. By the way, this hat is a Mark Thompson Show beanie, which my sister insisted on putting. Oh, I'm sorry, I just screwed it up. But you can see it is a. And Dad, the last picture I have of Dad from the last trip, which just was a month ago, he was wearing this beanie. So there it is. That's right. There he is in the middle. He was wearing this very beanie. So it's kind of wild to be back, and here it is. Very, very cool. So she was so cool to put it back there, and now I've ruined her display. But anyway, I want a big shout out to all of you who have joined us today. And my voiceover agent has just discovered the show. This is how bad I am at getting word out that I have a show.
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
I didn't even tell my dear voiceover agent, who I've been with now forever, and he says, "Hey, I'm watching. This is really great, and I'll from now on I'll always watch." So,
hey, Mark's agent, if you hear anything you like, I'm happy to work for scale.
If you're a new subscriber, like my voiceover agent is, subscribe, and you can hit the notification bell. Anytime we drop a new video, you'll get notified. Or just subscribe and hit the thumbs up, and that's it. Now, Albert, what do you want to do? Do you want to acknowledge people who've contributed now, or do you want to wait till the end of this half hour? How do you want to do it?
Let's do some acknowledgments here, and then we'll talk a little Niners.
Okay, and we'll talk a little Niners, and I'll just want to, before I do the acknowledgments, I want to remind you, next hour, David Cay Johnson, the Pulitzer winner, he'll be here. We'll talk about Bill Barr and the weaponization of the Justice Department, the Trump trial, which actually may begin. Charges may be filed in the hush money paid to Stormy Daniels. I mean, who would have thought that case would bubble to the surface again, and might even get to trial first, if you want to think of it that way, and get to the courts first before the election tampering, which is a massive court case, it seems to me. And yet,
what does it say that there's so many legal issues against Trump that I have a hard time keeping track of them all.
Well, and
how many cases are there? Like, which one's gonna, which one will win the race?
I guess that's what I'm kind of saying.
Yeah.
The one that will win the race to court first may be this hush money to Stormy Daniels. But as you know, there's a defamation case from E.J. Carroll in New York. There's there are any number of cases regarding Trump and money and taxes, and but the Georgia case I thought would be the thing that might get to court first, because you have him on tape essentially trying to tamper with an election. But he is also a former president, and as a former president, a lot of stuff doesn't stick to him. You're beginning to see that with the documents, scandals, these document incidents that affect Trump. I mean, in a different way. There's an obstruction of justice. My God, there's obstruction of justice with Trump that involves his counsel being asked to change the record as to what happened in the Oval Office to cover up a series of events related to Trump. Again, all of these things we can talk to David Cay Johnson about, and I want to talk about the Bill Barr situation as well. So all of that's still to come. Niners next, but first, here's some acknowledgments. Thanks to everybody who's stepped up and left us something for the show. This is how we stay on the air. This is how we meet payroll, with your support. Tony, 455-999. What up, Tony?
Big shout out.
Tony.
Big shout out, Tony. Thank you.
Thank you
so much, Tony.
so much.
Thank you so much, Tony, for that contribution. Appreciate it very much. And John Anderson for 10. John Anderson, what up?
Oh,
Thank you so much.
I
Look
like
at
your
that.
picture, John Anderson.
You
You're
handsome
cute.
devil. I know. I love that.
Thank you,
Good to
thank
see
you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you for that $10, my friend. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Andreas.
Oh,
Wow. Andreas, you are what can we say? You're becoming the
Rockstar.
patron saint. Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for that
much.
$20. Thank you so much from our hearts. We appreciate it. Thank you very much, my friend. Andreas is always with us and is a constant supporter, and we so appreciate him. So you can do that as well. You can leave super sticker, super chats, and of course, as I've mentioned, we're on Patreon and PayPal. Those are great ways to support this show, independent of the YouTube platform. You go to themarkthompsonshow.com, and then you click on Patreon or PayPal and contribute that way.
While we're
Now-
at it, let's talk about I think there's the last couple of days for the shop for some of your items, right?
Oh,
The
that's
KGO and
right.
Exile.
The KGO and Exile t-shirt will be taken down after today. This is the last day of KGO and Exile.
it's the end of an era.
It's the end of an era. Your last chance. Is it still available though today? Okay. Yeah. The KGO and Exile t-shirt was the best seller, and it will be taken down today. This is it. They actually made like a second pressing or whatever to keep up with demand. And this helps us, to be honest, which I always like to be with you guys. We don't really get a lot of money from the merch. It's kind of a fun thing. We get a little bit. It's not enough but we really have fun with it, and we hope you do too. And so go to the merch site. I think you'll find it fun. Getmarkmerch.com. You can get one of those beanies like my dad had, the winter
Cute.
pom-pom beanie.
Yeah.
Very popular.
Who doesn't want that?
Yeah. And there's also a beanie without a pom-pom. So that may be more your jam. So, and of course, all the mugs, you can see there's a bottle opener, there's a Mark Advanced Hydration System, and the tumbler, the magic pot holder. It is magical, and it will hold pots, but it won't hold your pot. You should
Where are
put
my
your
weed
pot-
smokers at?
Yeah, no, it's not for that. I mean, it could hold pot, but that's not what it's designed for. Anyway, getmarkmerch.com. Thank you, Albert, for taking us on that tour and reminding us that this is the last day for the KGO and Exile t-shirt. Now, you want some Niners news?
I do.
Yeah. Well, I have it for you now. Albert.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I also have COVID news. I know Kim touched on it before, but I'll get to that a little bit later, the COVID news, after David Cay Johnson, because I thought there were a couple of big COVID-related stories that I wanted to pass along to you. So anyway, we'll get to that. By the way, just before I get to the Niners news, I wanted to mention in sports, Steph Curry. What about that last night? Didn't you have a big night last night? Was it last night, Albert? All the nights run together for me right now.
Yeah, at
Didn't
the
he?
NIMBYs. Let me get
No,
the
no. I know
story.
he's not. I know he's not in the best way with the NIMBYs. He doesn't want a homeless housing for what would you call it, Kim? Affordable housing? Is that what? Is that
Oh, yeah,
the?
he doesn't necessarily want the riffraff in his backyard.
Yeah.
You
Okay,
know,
that's another way to put it. I was trying to be polite.
who can blame him?
Yeah. So he says there is a major privacy and safety concern. That wasn't the reason I wanted to mention Steph Curry. He had a big night the other night and led the Warriors, I think, against the Thunder.
Yeah, against the Thunder. Him and Clay had a classic performance. The Splash Brothers show they still got it.
Yeah, that was what I wanted to mention, but it kind of got into a NIMBY thing with Steph. So, that's his private life, but he's still got it on the court. Yeah. So, look, Tom Brady could end up coming to the 49ers. Now, I know
It's like it would be a homecoming for him.
What?
he is from the Bay Area.
San Mateo.
From the peninsula, exactly. I know the body's not cold yet, and we're already having this conversation. But I just wanted to address it because it's out there.
Yeah.
Here's how Tom Brady comes to the Niners. Tom Brady comes to the Niners as a low end. He can go wherever he wants. You understand? He's a free agent. So he can take his handsome to any team that he wants to take it. Him and his new Instagram model girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
The way that he'd come to Niners is, yes, with a low end contract. Like he'd make nothing. Okay, they're not going to pay him big Tom Brady money. He would come to the Niners as a guy who is on the roster and playing for what is so close to free. Okay, I mean, like around $1 million, somewhere around there. So, I mean, in that world, that's not a lot of money, right? This is a former superstar. He doesn't need the money. It would be a legacy play for him. Now, we all know Tom Brady is older. He's old in football terms.
Was he like 45?
Yeah, he's 45.
Yeah.
He can't move like Brock Purdy. One of the great things about Brock Purdy is he's able to improv. He's able to Patrick Mahomes it a little bit. I understand he's not Patrick Mahomes, but he's able to do some of those things to elude the rush, to take advantage of opportunities to run. These are not things that Tom Brady can do. Tom Brady can unload underneath to running backs and essentially these throws to the flat to outlet receivers, right? But he's not going to take the ball down and run. That said, he was pretty durable through what was a really long season. And, Albert, the other day you said he didn't have anybody around him, which is true and not true, right? He had some assets on that Tampa Bay team, right?
A couple weapons, but the most important part for a 45-year-old quarterback is protecting him, and that's something they didn't do, which is kind of sad, just watching an old man go back there, still show signs that he got it, but the line just couldn't protect him as much as they should have.
I mean, I think Albert is right. And there's that pic of Purdy and Brady hugging at the end of that game. That hug would happen again if those boxes I checked on the way to that explanation get checked again by Tom Brady. I'm talking about not taking a lot of money, just coming to the Bay Area because he wants to finish his career with a contender team. But
do you think that if we rolled back time to the most recent 49ers game and it was Tom Brady in the driver's seat instead of Brock Purdy, that we would have walked away winners in that game?
No. I think, as I said the other day, I think Purdy actually could have won that game for us. I do believe the Niners had, don't get me wrong, the Eagles were fearsome. I'm not sure that's true, that we could have, that pass rush was, and that was another coaching decision. Remember, I mentioned this the other day. We were talking about the fact that, you have one of the top sack leaders in the NFL being blocked by a tight end. You just can't do that. I mean, we were overmatched, I think, that way. Our offensive line was overmatched. So it might have not mattered, but Purdy has the elusiveness. Purdy has the ability to make things happen. I think No, I think Brady would have been decimated by that Eagles rush, given the offensive line configuration that we have now. So yeah, I don't know that it would have mattered. It's just that there's a lot of talk about a marquee quarterback and a lot of talk about Brady. So I thought I'd mention it. I think a better move for the Niners would be Trey Lance. You've still got him, and we really don't know what he is. I mean, Albert, do you know what Trey Lance is? Is he a star? Is he a disappointment?
He has the same exact qualities that the quarterback we just played against has. The dynamic on paper, he's really fast. He could throw it really hard. He could throw it really far. But I don't know if he has that same exact experience that like Brock Purdy, which is funny to say because he's like a year less into the NFL, but 4-year starter in college, clearly has had a good feel for football, which I don't want to say we haven't seen enough of Trey Lance yet. So I'd like to see both of them duke it out next season. I think that should be the move.
I agree. I think that quarterback competition and quarterback competitions are as old as the NFL. I think that really would be something to watch, and we would really get a chance to see. And both of them come cheap. These guys like Aaron Rodgers, he's not coming to the Niners. Aaron Rodgers is so expensive. The Niners don't have that money, and nor do they want Rodgers within their organization. You'd have to change the entire organization to have Aaron Rodgers within that offense. You have to change
all the popular names we're used to. We would have half of those players if we had that kind of budget on a quarterback. And both of our quarterbacks that we just talked about, Trey Lance and Brock Purdy, both on entry-level deals because we drafted them. So we should try to utilize that while we can.
Yeah. So there you go. We agree then. Look, everybody in the chat, are you watching the chat, Kim? Because when I'm talking, I can't, in this configuration, I can't keep an eye on both. But people, I think, are not crazy for having Tom Brady come back to the Bay Area anyway. No, I just see this one. What I see, Jennifer says, no Brady ever. Washed up, stuck up, expiration date. Wow. It's a tough room, man. Yeah. I guess no Tom Brady posters at her house. Vilma says it's not a sure thing that the 49ers line can protect Brady. Should he come here? No, it's a sure thing they can't protect him, I would say. I mean, they're not bad. And look at the running game that Niners have some blocking schemes that create tremendous power in that running game. But, Brady would probably come here and get injured like everyone else. Yeah. Well, this is the place people come to get injured.
It is a weird thing that the quarterbacks keep on getting injured, but you see the elite quarterbacks do the best job of getting rid of the ball so they don't get hit as much. And you see that in Brady and Rodgers, who all of them have had at least one major injury, but they learn after that injury to get rid of the ball, not hold it as quick. So hopefully, I don't know. It's been terribly unlucky for the Niners for the past couple seasons.
Unofficial associate producer of the show, Calvin Wong, asks if we'd consider Derek Carr.
No, that's a fast no.
I agree with the commissioner on this. I think that Derek Carr is, 3 or 4 seasons ago, he was so good, Albert. What happened to Derek Carr?
He was pretty solid at some points this season, but it's just I can't if you're a quarterback still calling timeouts, this is my bar. If you call timeouts because you're confused about a play call like 6 seasons into your career, and it happens on a weekly basis, I don't know if you're the right quarterback for my team.
A lot of people are mentioning Colin Kaepernick.
Has that ship completely sailed?
Commissioner, I ask you.
Probably, yeah. I'd love him on the Niners. I'm a big Kaepernick fan. I did, like I said a couple weeks ago, I ran into him at a Dave & Buster's, so I've always been a Colin Kaepernick fan. And I was there for the playoff game against the Packers where he broke numerous NFL records. He ran for over 180 yards for a couple touchdowns, and it's still the best game I've ever been. So I'm always pulling for Colin Kaepernick, but I think he's done.
No. Well, it continues. That's just the way that Brady could end up at the Niners, and all the ways that that Aaron Rodgers is not going to end up at the Niners. So that's that. Let's talk some COVID. Albert Stinger, please.
The Mark Thompson Show.
So you saw and heard in Kim's news that Joe Biden is ending the COVID emergency declaration in May. Okay, so that means that you won't be able to, and Kim again detailed this for you a few minutes ago, you won't be able to get the free testing, and you won't be able to, I guess it affects also funding when it comes to treatment for COVID. Isn't that
That's
right, Kim?
Mhm.
Yeah.
All those things that have been free since the pandemic started would no longer be free.
Right.
So that includes not only the test kits that we get a couple free every so many months. It would also include the actual testing when you go and get the test. The doctor administered test or lab
Right.
administered test. Wouldn't be free. The treatment of COVID would no longer be free. So
I thought it interesting that against that backdrop that Kim has just described, one of the highest profile voices of the science community and medicine, and we've had him on this show several times. I'm talking about Dr. Bob Wachter. He's the chair of medicine at UC San Francisco. He is on record now as saying he'll always wear the KN95 mask, always, forever, in large gatherings, in busy supermarkets, and on public transport. He says this is not going to impede the quality of his life. He's fully vaccinated, but he intends to keep wearing this KN95 mask.
Well, how do we ever look at a large gathering the same again? I went to, and I think maybe it's the second movie since the pandemic. I went to the movie theater over the weekend, and it's not very many people in there, but I don't know those people, and I'm in an enclosed space with strangers. Mask
Sure.
goes on, so my daughter's in a play, right? And there's got to be 200 people in the room. Mask goes on, so I think it's less a case of not going to do these things, but being careful when you do, because now we know that COVID has a whole host of other possibilities when it comes to what the outcome could be for your health.
Right. And this is something that I said from the very beginning because I hated the argument. Well, only 3% of the people die from COVID. I said, dying is not what I'm worried about. I mean, I understand it's a possibility. Believe me, I'm worried about dying just generally, but I get that the percentages when it comes to dying are low, but the percentages of it affecting your life in other ways are high. Long COVID affects, they think, 30% of those who get it. That might even be a low number.
Yeah.
And the effects of long COVID can be across a wide breadth of symptoms. So you get everything from COVID brain to pulmonary issues to any number of things related to COVID now. I'm not talking about the vaccine. I mean, I know that there are those of you who are watching going, well, Mark, it's the vaccine that's producing this. Maybe. I'm not talking about that, though, now. I'm talking about if you get COVID. These are the lingering effects. And so, to Kim's point, Wachter is saying, and again, Wachter is among the go-to guys when it comes to this. He's saying it's that, what Kim's talking about, what I've just mentioned, long COVID, that he's worried about. He hasn't gotten COVID yet. I mean, that's a pretty good brag this far into the pandemic. And he says there's a low case rate in the Bay Area, which is where he lives. The latest data shows that there are currently fewer than 500 new cases a day, and the CDC classes the transmission rate as low. That's in the Bay Area.
And that is why I just let my kids take the mask off at school. Just now. Everyone else has not had the mask on this year. My kids have worn the mask until, I want to say, a week ago. I said, I think the cases are low enough. I think you can finally take the mask off at school. What happened? My son is home today sick from school.
Wow.
I don't know what it is. It's just sounds like a cold. We're testing for COVID. We'll find out.
He has this. This is interesting. When your son says he's not feeling well, is that enough to keep him out of school, or does he have to show some sort of demonstrable symptom?
He trusts his body. He doesn't abuse it. Like he doesn't say I'm sick when he's not. Yeah. So I would believe him, but he's stuffed up, so I can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and even Wachter says, look, I'm using common sense. He said, He's comfortable indoors with a group that he knows, and if everybody's fully vaccinated. For his regular poker games with friends, he said, I'll lobby till they throw me out to keep the doors and windows open during the game. I'll do the same with other small indoor gatherings, like at a friend's house. So
I love him. And who doesn't have Dr. Bob Wachter over? And when he says open the window, you don't open them. Yeah, Wachter says open the window, you better goddamn open the window fast.
Yeah.
Right?
He said that when browsing a busy supermarket, he would wear a face mask. When dashing in and out of a bodega, he would probably not even bother. He said, I'm not telling people what they should do, he said. I'm telling you what I'm doing. Perfectly reasonable people have looked at all of these odds or decided not to look at them, and they've chosen to live life like it's 2019. This is true. I mean, we've kind of treated COVID. That's why I started by referencing the Biden thing, which is, well, I'm going to declare an end to the emergency in May. So he's just saying it's while there's joy in getting back to normal, is what he's saying, we're not necessarily back to normal. And he said, I'm going to re-up my precautions if warranted. He's watching all of those things, the statistics and the case rates. So that's the latest from Bob Wachter. Yeah.
Did you see this other COVID related story? This is California had this law that it's called the COVID misinformation law, kind of gave some teeth to doctors who tried to stray from the scientific consensus. You know, if they started going off the rails a little bit, saying things that were on the fringe. No, you can't do that. If you tell people that things that are untrue, you finally would have to have a consequence. So it was for egregious instances in which a doctor or licensee, they say, is acting with malicious intent, deviating from the required standard of care while interacting with patients. They now say, well, this whole misinformation category is too broad. So a judge is halting the law until they can hone it down a little bit. What is exactly COVID misinformation?
Yeah, I think that's so dangerous in a way. It always worries me. It's kind of, I'll tell you two things. First of all, any limitation on speech, and it always worries me.
Yeah.
By the same token, we're in a bouillabaisse of misinformation. I mean, that seems to be like everybody's peddling their own brand of news or information. And it's tough to know. And we're going to talk to Cay Johnson about this, just interestingly enough, in just a few minutes. But I also think that there has to be some magnetic north on information, and it's just tough to establish what that is and to make sure that people adhere to it. I worry about clamping down. Look, we see it on our channel. I mean, those of you who may just be joining us aren't aware of this, but I'll just tell you quickly. On our fourth day on this channel, we were talking about ramifications of the January 6th hearings, and we're talking about some of the specifics there. They took down the episode. It's not just a flag. You get one of those and you get one more, and then you're done. You're literally off the channel. So by the way, if you're on Patreon, if that ever happened to us, we would tell you on Patreon where we would be. We'd probably go over to that platform. But again, and the reason I say it is because they took it down by accident. The artificial intelligence heard us talking about the January 6th hearings, and they thought we were part of this misinformation. And they literally took down the episode and warned us that if it happens again, our channel goes away.
What?
That's AI. Yeah. So I worry in relation to what Kim's talking about. I worry about doctors being, or those with information, being canceled too quickly. I really do. I mean, you have to be able to have access to a breadth of information, not just the mainstream medical establishment. So I get that this is a prickly area, but I'm kind of at a loss as to how you really cure this problem, even though I know they want to. So smash the like button like a boss. Kim's news next,
Smash
and then
it with your iron rod.
Pulitzer winner David Cay Johnston next as we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Mark Thompson Show. I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. In Tulare County, the sheriff is now calling for the death penalty in this horrible case of multiple murders. Sheriff Mike Boudreau calling for the death penalty for those responsible for killing 6 people in the town of Goshen earlier this month. During a news conference yesterday, the sheriff confirmed all 6 victims died of gunshot wounds, including a 16-year-old girl and her baby, 10-month-old baby, shot in the head. So far, no arrests have been made in this case, but the sheriff believes that the shooters did have gang ties. In Oakland, we know that the zoo was closed because of a massive sinkhole. Well, now it is set to reopen more than a month after storm-related damages. It had closed on New Year's Day, but again, now it is reopening Friday, February 3rd, the opening date, and people will be able to go see the animals at the Oakland Zoo once again. Speaking of zoos, there's a couple monkeys that were taken from the Dallas Zoo in what they're calling a suspicious event. These 2 monkeys were kind of the latest in the string of incidents at the zoo, including fences being cut. They had a death of an endangered vulture there in the last 2 weeks as well. And now someone cut into an enclosure and took these 2 emperor tamarin monkeys, and those are the ones that look like they have a mustache.
Yeah, they're cute, but it's awful what they're doing to them.
Yeah.
Do they have security at the zoo? It's crazy. They're constantly cutting fences and ripping off animals. They found one animal dead, and when they looked at the animal and examined it, it was the result of a trauma wound. It had been struck.
Yeah, it's a sad thing. And you would think once an enclosure was cut, or after the first incident, there would be higher security in that zoo. But yeah, now these 2 monkeys are missing and they don't know where they are. It looks like someone has a real issue with the Dallas Zoo, they're saying. They have an excellent reputation, the Dallas Zoo, according to the people, the American Association of Zookeepers. So,
yeah, let me tell you that's first of all, there's problems with their organization, the certification of zoos. But the other point is that they have a great reputation, except when it comes to security. Apparently, I mean, if there are that many fences and enclosures being breached, and you're losing animals, these are endangered. You understand? Some of these primates are endangered animals. Like, there are not a lot of them. But that's not even the point. Let's assume there were tons of them. It's an outrage. I mean, you put these animals in your care and protection, and you can't even provide basic security. It's outrageous. I think it's disgusting that this zoo has a good reputation. They should have. I mean, well, let's at least take a meeting on their reputation as a result of these incidents. I would ask for that.
Well, they say that they now have overnight security cameras there, and things may be getting a little better as far as the precautions that they're taking. But, you worry about what's happening to these monkeys. Are they being sold on the black market? Are they being hurt? What's happening to them?
Exactly. Now they have overnight security. Oh, my God. I mean, you'd think they'd have overnight security after the first incident. How many incidents do there have to be before you can? Oh, my God. Anyway.
It took a little bit, just a little bit. I don't know. So I don't know if you saw this video. This is from ABC7 in Hawaii. And let me see if I can show it to you. This is crazy, 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 where Boulder crashes right into this people's home. See if you can see the minute this boulder rolls through.
Now at 11, dramatic video capturing
a
huge boulder
crashing.
Oh
my God!
In Hawaii.
So that's from ABC in Hawaii. Sorry for the sound there. Yeah, goes right into their house. Wild. This massive boulder goes right into this home in Hawaii, and it looks like right into their living room. This woman was standing nearby, narrowly missed by this boulder. There were 4 people at home, And this one woman who lives there, Caroline Sasaki, she was standing very close when this big boulder comes rolling right into her house, goes right past her. Everyone else comes running into the living room to see what happens. They had just moved into that house this month, if you can believe that.
There's never been anything like this.
Nobody knows what caused this boulder to roll right into the house, but thank goodness everybody is okay. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. If you need help with your taxes, Steve's the one to call. You can see at the bottom of your screen, 888-TAX-DEAL or MoskowitzLLP.com. There it is right there. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
Yes, it is The Mark Thompson Show. There you go.
The Mark Thompson Show.
What up, everybody? Sorry about that, Albert. You can fade that out. I'm sorry. I thought this is being on remote.
That's good, baby.
It's a different kind of experience. So sorry. I just provided you 30 seconds of content that you didn't even hear because I didn't have my mic on. Otherwise, we're fine. This is Washington, D.C. You can smell the lobbyists from here. It's a great thing. Yes. I grew up in this town and I grew up in this house. And it's a weird experience to be home. I was just here a month ago and my mom and dad were both great. We had that picture of them before. My dad wearing the Mark Thompson Show beanie. And now poor dad is in the hospital and he's kind of in a rough spot. So I came back to be with him. And it's great that I could see the family and be with him at this time and do the show given technology. You know, the kids with the technology, it's a great thing. I'm able to host the show from here. So it is also great that it continues. This is someone who is, I'm just a fan of all of his work. The many books on how the rich are essentially soaking the system. And he is a Trumpologist, and he has written chapter and verse literally on how the Trumps have done the same. And he is co-founder of DCReports.org. And there was a piece at DC Report that I particularly wanted to get to today. So we'll ask him about Bill Barr. We'll ask him about malfeasance of all stuff. When it comes to grift and corruption and those who are doing it, there's one guy who's on the trail of them all. He is David Cay Johnson, the Pulitzer Prize winner. Hi, David.
Hello there. Sorry about your dad. You're doing the right thing. Family first.
Oh, thank you, my friend. Thank you so much. Well, David, I want to ask you first about something that the listeners, several of them have written in and asked about, and that is these revelations around William Barr, the former Attorney General, and how, in addition to essentially being a hatchet man for Trump and running interference on a lot of things, and now he's on this rehabilitation tour. It's disgusting. I saw Bill Maher kissing his ass the other night, and it made my skin crawl. I couldn't believe it. It's remarkable. If you just show any inkling of being against Trump on anything, those who are the center left, as they call themselves, like Bill Maher, they end up hugging and kissing you, which is what was happening. But now it's revealed that he was actually trying to do Trump's bidding politically at the Justice Department. So people are asking, is there any way for that which he did at the Justice Department that runs afoul legally of anything? Is there any way for him to be brought to justice in any way?
Well, as a practical matter, I have zero expectation that will happen. Barr's conduct was absolutely reprehensible. His torpedoing with the false statements of the Mueller report and saying that it didn't find wrongdoing when there are at least 10 criminal acts in the report. His hiding from the public, something Mueller finally revealed because of a smart question that was asked in one of the Senate hearings, that in fact Mueller was ordered not to investigate what we all thought he was investigating. And then this—
You're talking about, when you say that, you're talking about Russian money, are you not?
That's right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. He was the Mueller investigation was not go and find out what you can. What we saw, say, with Ken Starr was highly restricted. And then we find out that John Dunham, the career prosecutor who had an excellent reputation, came up with nothing. He had 2 minor cases he brought. Juries took very little time to dismiss the cases as being nonsense, and judges had pared the charges down before that. And we find out that the Italians advised our government of what appeared to be improper financial transactions by Trump. And Dunham was assigned to investigate those, but you wouldn't know that unless you dug deeply into the documentation. They didn't put it out there in public. So, Bill Barr has ruined, in my view and many other people's view, his reputation, that he had. But the likelihood that he'll be indicted, not going to happen. It's just not. As a practical matter, it's not going to happen. And let's not lose sight of the fact that the vast majority of white-collar crime in America never results in any criminal action. Even the majority of blue-collar crimes, in murders, the LA Times did a series, around the end of the 90s, and showed that in Los Angeles County, the 10 million people in LA County, that's more than about 10 of the 12 of the states, at least, only about 1 in 4 murders resulted in someone being convicted and sent to prison. And when you consider how many murders are, husband killing wife, wife killing husband, business partner killing business partner, there's relatively easy to solve murders, not a random stranger on the street. That's a pretty shocking number. So we've all been accustomed by TV procedurals and novels and movies, to think, boy, the cops, they get everybody. Nonsense. Most people who commit crimes get away with them.
Wow. I mean, it is, I guess on some level you get to a certain age and you're aware of this, but to hear it stated so bluntly, it's pretty brutal. And the thing about white collar crimes, and of course you're right. I mean, just even the way the arrests of white collar criminals go down is so much different than the way the arrests of others go down. But in the case of Trump and his constellation of those who were in on many grifts, David, these are so high profile. That's why I would think it would be harder to skate away. But in truth, the length of time it's taken to bring charges, and now I want to kind of get to this case that the payoff of Stormy Daniels, the case that might make it to court first. The time it's taken to get that is starting to make us all think, oh, I get it. He's right. The president and former presidents are bulletproof.
Well, I've long been surprised that there was no prosecution in the Stormy Daniels case. I could understand why the federal government might not do it, but this is a case in which the co-conspirator, Michael Cohen, owned up to everything, and we have the documents. And for those who may not recall, in Stormy Daniels' version of this in her book, she and Donald had what we keep referred to in the news media as an affair that by her count lasted 45 seconds. So Donald Trump seems to have paid at the hourly rate over $10 million an hour to have sex with the porn star.
Well, to be fair, he had somewhere to be. So
yeah, right. And he clearly there was an illegal transaction here. Michael Cohen went to prison over this, and in fact, he was sent back to prison in what the courts held was an improper use of executive power to hurt him. So if, in fact, Alvin Bragg decides this is the case he's going to bring, he certainly brought a case that he's almost certain to win. And as I think I mentioned before on your show, Mark, there's an old saying among prosecutors, you don't bring the case you should, you bring the case you know you will win. And if you can't win this case, then you can't win any case, because Michael Cohen's going to testify for you and, oh yeah, he's not a reliable person. Juries put people away all the time when the testimony is from someone who is a killer. I mean, consider Sammy the Bull Gravano, who got on the witness stand, admitted killing 19 people, and his jurors still believed his testimony. And some of the best sources I've ever had in my life were crooked cops, prostitutes, drug dealers. I had a gay, homosexual pimp, heroin dealer in San Francisco when I was there with the LA Times. And everything he told me turned out to be absolutely spot on. It was the editors of the LA Times who were unwilling to publish based on what he said, even when he produced dictabelts from a lawyer showing everything he had told me was true. So
you're saying jurors want to be put off with it. I have to say personally, sex stuff, I don't give a damn about it. I don't care who's screwing who and whatever. And so,
I agree.
So sadly, this thing doesn't land with me as a big. Now, tell me why, though, the payoff is a big deal. It relates to elections and election money, doesn't it?
Yes. What happened here is that both Stormy Daniels and Karen McDonald were paid off to keep silent. That could be construed under federal law as a campaign contribution and a campaign expenditure. Trump lied about it in documents. And Michael Cohen was convicted in this conspiracy, says that it should be very easy to convict Donald Trump of the very same set of facts. And I think that Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan DA, who I earlier this month wrote a piece in the New York Daily News laying out a roadmap for him on another way to prosecute Donald Trump. I think Bragg has felt the political pressure that you are a prosecutor. You're supposed to treat everybody equally. You say you're going to. You need to take some kind of action. It makes sense to bring this case. It is not by any means the biggest or most important case that can be brought. It's certainly one that a testimony will prove humiliating for Donald Trump in all likelihood, although I think Donald is humiliation proof.
Well, he'll farm it out to, look, I can't believe he skated on the, grab him by the pee thing. But he once he wriggled out of that, the guy that's his magic. I'd say he has two magic powers. The way he wriggles out of stuff with, just force of bullying personality. And I also think he, on a political level, he knows the things people care about. And sadly, I wish more politicians who are righteous in what they value know what people care about. For example, I thought it was interesting that Trump went against the general GOP narrative that's out there on Social Security. Now, I don't know who's still listening to Trump. I mean, he's lost a lot of political power, but that was smart. I mean, his party, that's a loser, man. Getting rid of, if you call that an entitlement program, Social Security, that is a third rail referred to as such for a reason.
Well, yeah, and I would argue, of course, that all the tax benefits Trump got are entitlements too. Entitlements aren't just when the government sends you a check. The right to not pay a tax or a lack of enforcement allowing you to not pay a tax or a gray area Congress hasn't cleaned up. Those are all entitlements as well. Let's not lose sight of that. But Donald got where he got because he is a brilliant con artist. He knows how to read people. He knows that most people will be intimidated by any kind of a threat. During the 2016 campaign, I wrote what, looking back, was a pretty anodyne piece about Donald's mob connections and his deep involvement with this international cocaine trafficker, Joe Wexelbaum. Everything was in the public record, and it was the most heavily lawyered piece of my career. And I've written stories accusing people of murder, of being spies. It was just astonishing. And it was very clear that the lawyers were terrified that Trump would sue them. And of course, my attitude was, well, let him sue you, because you're going to be able to get sanctions against him. At the end of the day, it won't cost you anything. And he doesn't have anything. But Donald is very good at reading the zeitgeist out there. The Republican move, which I tweeted about either early this morning or yesterday, to cut Social Security and Medicare, to cut Medicaid, which means we're going to have disabled and poor children die, to deal with their ideological bias against government debt is the most foolhardy thing I can imagine. I'm sure that in the districts of congressmen like Chip Roy, it plays well. But to destroy the integrity of the American dollar forever, something Alexander Hamilton fought hard for, that we had to pay our debts, and that Thomas Jefferson, who opposed him initially, went along with that. In fact, that's how we got our first federal subsidy law, a subsidy for cod fishermen in the late 1700s, because the British were harassing our cod fishing fleet out of New England. And 1/4 of America's foreign earnings back then were from cod we sold to Europe. And we have always defended the integrity of the American government's finances through war, peace, recessions, pandemics. And for these Republicans to come along and say, I'm going to ruin the American economy forever because we can't afford this debt. By the way, have you ever noticed that as the government spends money by borrowing it, that the economy gets stronger? Because what the government's doing is it's injecting money into the economy. It means more people have jobs and there's more money to spend.
Well, and not only that, David, I would just remind people, because I think we do lose sight of this, particularly because the messaging is so effective around this, like we're spending too much money and we're demanding these pullbacks in spending, as you've suggested and noted. So now we're talking about raising the debt. You understand these? I understand you understand this, David, but I'm saying we should remind ourselves this is money that's already been spent. All right, this argument is not about what we're going to spend. It's what you guys at the House, you've already spent it. You've already approved it.
Well, this is Congress adopting actually a position of Donald Trump. Donald Trump would often refuse to pay people. He'd owe them $280,000 and he'd pay them $190,000. And they'd say, wait a minute, you owe me more money. And the response to this would be, Donald would say, I've paid you enough. Well, that's not how it works. If your boss next week says, here's a paycheck, I'm only paying you for 3 days because I think you made enough, that's not how it works. And the 14th Amendment says the debts of the government are not to be questioned. Congress spent the money. Doesn't matter if it was a Democratic Congress or a Republican Congress. In this case, the current deficits are from the Republicans in 2017 borrowing money to give the wealthiest people in America, particularly Donald Trump, who was president, and big corporations a tax, quote unquote, cut by borrowing money to allow them to pay less. So we're going to take from you, ordinary people, to continue benefiting people who have more money than they know what to do with, and big companies. And we're now going to ruin the American economy forever. Now, hopefully the business community, the leaders of corporations, responsible grown-up adults who understand money and economics, are going to go to the Republicans and say, you got to allow enough people to cross over, 6 of them, to pass an increase in the debt ceiling. And just one more point, Mark. It's important to understand that the U.S. government can never go broke. It could make us go broke, theoretically, but the government has a monopoly under our Constitution on money. And as long as it can borrow in dollars, if we were borrowing in Swiss francs, we could be in big trouble, but we're borrowing in our dollars. And people are lined up all around the world to borrow from us, to lend us money for us to borrow from them. And because we're what's called a reserve currency, we literally print lots of dollar bills, $5 bills, $20 bills that are then sent overseas and never come back. That's like a net profit to us. If you go to Argentina, where the economy is a wreck, as my wife and I did 9 years ago now, if you had cash, dinner on the credit card is $300. You have $200 in American money and 1s, 5s, and 10s. $200 will be fine. We'll take that instead of the $300. I don't think people appreciate how valuable the dollar is. And once you ruin our position, once you sorry, not meaning to offend people from Wales, once you fail to pay your bills as they come due, you're a deadbeat forever to the rest of the world.
Well, it definitely, it could have
ruined it.
That ripple effect that you talk about is real. It's always been this I'm going to jump this aspect of aspect to, closing government down. It's been used for a long time, generally by the GOP. But this particular configuration of crazies feels just crazy enough to not really understand the ramifications of what you've just touched on.
Well, these are the fruits of gerrymandering, Mark. You create these districts where you could do almost anything and you'll get reelected by people in that district. And it's terrible that the Supreme Court has essentially held recently that it's a political decision how you cut lines. It has nothing to do with one man, one vote under the 14th Amendment.
That's such a great point that you've just made. And it is how we ended up with this particular collection of crazy. So look, I can't let you go without, I want to mention this one piece, which I really liked. And it's part of a much longer conversation. It's at dcreport.org. And it's by this guy, Terry Schwadron, who I think does really great stuff for you at that. I know you pulled back from DC Report, but that, you helped found it. And this piece is called A Fountain of Distrust. And essentially, Schwadron argues that the American people have lost faith in government. I saw this as a great piece that essentially pulls back the curtain on a number of public institutions, and I include media in this, that the public really doesn't have faith in anymore in the ways that the public has in the past. And the ripple effect of that is very serious.
It is. And this has been a long time coming. I mean, as Terry, who I've known for 40 years, was concerned about this in the mid-'80s. And he's hit upon a very important point. There are all sorts of people who, if things aren't perfect, therefore they must be corrupt. I just got a letter yesterday about a book review I wrote in the Washington Post from a guy in prison telling me what a totally corrupt and dishonest person I was because I liked this book. I never could figure out what it was that set the guy off from his letter. But there are all sorts of people like that. If a member of Congress doesn't do things exactly the way I think, well, therefore they're entirely corrupt. And this has been fostered and encouraged by Fox News, by the Wall Street Journal editorial page, by a lot of politicians. Democracy depends on trust. Wealthy economies depend on trust. You make a deposit on a house, you're trusting that, in fact, the person you left the deposit with is not running away with the money and they actually have the house to sell you. And they're supposed to put it in an escrow account. Yet we're seeing a rise in these crimes where people make a deposit on a rental or a purchase, and it turns out it was just a scam. Trust is fundamental to human progress. And Terry makes a very good point about it. We also have another piece, which is not on the front page at DC Report, but if you go to dcreportsingular.org and type in Dean Baker, it'll pop up right away. Dean Baker is an economist. He's a liberal, and he sticks very clearly to fundamental principles of economics. And it's about how really well our economy is doing and why we should be worried that the Fed will mess it up, because the general history on the Federal Reserve trying to stop inflation is they go too far and they plunge us into an unnecessary recession. But it is a lot of very useful information in Dean's report in plain English. There's a nice little graphic there. Just type in Dean Baker at dcreport.org, and it'll take about 4 minutes to read, and you'll have a very good understanding of the current state of our economy.
I love that. I'll tweet it as well, and I look forward to getting into it. So much more to talk to you about. I'm going to talk about the loss of faith, and we're wrapping up here with David Cay Johnston. But I think the COVID messaging was botched.
Yep.
And I think, and there are a lot of things we could talk about when it comes to COVID. For example, I don't understand why there isn't a blue ribbon panel looking at the handling of COVID. I mean, I don't think it was handled well. And that's not to necessarily, throw, Molotov cocktails rhetorically at, any one either government institution or portion of the medical community, but the messaging wasn't handled well. So anyway, my point in mentioning it, I thought it dovetails with Schwadron's piece, because that hurt faith in yet another institution. Yep. Science, the medical community, by extension, government, and the government agencies associated with those things.
Yeah. Real fundamental problems about maintaining a cohesive society, which is essential if you're going to have a democracy. It's okay to disagree. We can see the world in a different way, But as Senator Moynihan said many years ago, we're all entitled to our own opinion, but not to our own facts.
I just don't know if you can put Humpty Dumpty together again. I guess that's where I am on this.
I mean, that's a very good question. I was in New York City 10 days ago to give 3 talks to investigative reporters and editors. And the front desk clerk at the Hilton where I stayed, I went to complain that they had on one of the far right-wing mendacious TV quote unquote news organizations in the breakfast room. And she didn't know who they were. And I said, well, these are people who supported the effort to overthrow our government 2 years ago. And she said, to overthrow our government? And I said, yeah, the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol where people died, where President Trump told the mob to go there. And she said, I don't know anything about that. And I was disbelieving. But as I talked to her, she finally said, oh, I don't pay any attention to all of the news, never listen to the news. If it comes on, I ignore it. And I thought, I wonder how many people there are like her. Because I actually believe her. I don't think she had any knowledge at all of those events.
That's wild. That you, of all people, could have that exchange with her.
More than a handful of those.
Yeah. I love that you're having that conversation of all people. That's a great, David, love you. Thank you. We'll talk next Tuesday. The great David Cay Johnson, everyone. DCReport.org and across the spectrum, all of his books and articles. Great to have him here. Mark Thompson.
The Mark Thompson Show.
So Kim's news coming up, and on the other side, much to do. Smash that like button like a boss. Oh, yeah.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Damn straight. Get it done. I have news. I'm looking ahead. I have news out of New Mexico. I have some law and disorder to do. I might even get onto some Kamala Harris news as well, if there's
what?
Time. I know. Not promising. Just saying it's a possibility. All right. Kim's news next. Thanks for being here. Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. That is it for the Boeing 747 jumbo jet. The very last one is being delivered today. In the 15 years, last 15 years, I should say, Boeing and Airbus have introduced more profitable, fuel-efficient planes that are wide-bodied with only 2 engines to maintain. The 747 has 4. So it's being phased out. The final plane, the 1,574th Boeing 747 jumbo jet, is being delivered today. Of course, Boeing built all these in the Puget Sound region of Washington state, and it will be the very last one. The farm where people were shot in Half Moon Bay will be putting up new housing for its workers. After the shooting, it was brought to light, workers at the farm were living in some pretty bad conditions. Leaky shipping containers. It's just not where you want to have people be. Now, California Terra Gardens says new structures for employees are on the way. And Colin Kaepernick, of course, former 49ers quarterback, is behind a new docuseries on Hulu. It's called Killing County, and it tells the story of a deadly hotel shooting in Kern County and details the involvement in the case of police in Bakersfield. There is another Bay Area company, sadly, that is announcing layoffs. This is Workday. It's based in Pleasanton. It's a tech company, and they are cutting 3% of their global workforce. Most of the layoffs coming for workers in the product and technology division of Workday. Again, that company based in Pleasanton. And Banana Boat is recalling one of its products because of a cancer-causing chemical involved. Edgewell Personal Care Company, makes Banana Boat sunscreen products. They say they're expanding their nationwide recall of their hair and scalp sunscreen sprays because of unexpected levels of benzene. It's not in the product itself, but it is in the propellant, which then ends up on you, which then
this is what I'm talking about. People give me a hard time about mentioning all this crap that's out there. I mean, it's how do you swim in all this stuff and not get sick?
You know, they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
See, Casey gets it.
And how long was it on the market where people were squirting this all over themselves? Sure. Yeah. So they started recalling this in July. Now they're expanding the recall. You can see the hair and scalp product is what's being recalled. So if that's something you use or you know someone who uses it, you might want to mention that. That's not something that you want to be putting on yourself. Nope. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz for more than 30 years. Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. If you need help with your taxes, oh, you're in luck because we've got a guy for you. Steve Moskowitz is the one. He's at 888 Tax Deal. He's at moskowitzllp.com, and you can thank us later. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Feels great, baby.
Let me kick down the door and talk to my cheap sons and daughters.
No context will suffice to explain the hurt and anguish caused by my words. I apologize to all who have been hurt.
I stand corrected. I misspoke. My words upset so many people.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
God bless America. The end.
There's never been anything like this. Do I hit it long? Is Trump strong? Huh?
Who is having that conversation?
It's fantastic.
That's not fake. That's real.
The science is ridiculous.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
If you get it in order, you get extra points.
Listen to me. I don't want to hear you.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
There is no defense for my conduct. It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Don't ever use that word.
You get nothing.
What's a guilty pleasure you have?
Seriously, what the
Wow, that ended quickly.
An abrupt ending. We skidded to the stop.
Albert, there's something anemic about that. It sounded, didn't it? Was a little bit weird.
Yes, you know,
We might have to take that one back to the workshop.
Yeah. Welcome, everyone. It's the home stretch. We're literally in. This is where I grew up, in this house, and so, as I've said, I have many.
Is that the kitchen or the
this
dining
is
room?
This area. And by the way,
Or the sunroom?
everyone's saying, well, you should have shot this way. Shoot like usually mom and dad, they shoot like this on the Zoom or whatever because it's a better. I just set up here because this is always where I sit when I come visit. It's where I eat. So this is the dining room table. Really, is where I am.
Okay.
I've had many a mediocre meal right here at this table.
That's rude. Your mom is a great cook.
That's what my dad says. My mother cooks on. We talk about those PFAs and the nonstick stuff. I remember when my mom just thought that nonstick stuff was the greatest thing ever. So she got all that stuff. And my mother grew up in the shadow of the Depression. Okay.
Right.
And my mother doesn't throw anything away. I've mentioned this to you before, maybe. So she saves everything, like those plastic containers. It's really hoarder adjacent. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And she's gotten worse as she's gotten older. But here's the part of the cooking thing. She literally has the original frying pans and everything that she's cooked in. Once the stuff gets scraped away, you're supposed to dump it anyway.
Yeah.
And
well, plus you would no longer cook on Teflon. Everyone knows that, right? Teflon,
mother,
no good. Cast iron is where it's at. Stainless. Like you don't cook with
10
chemicals.
feet from me is these are
Teflon
death pans, death pans. And my mom cooks on them and they're all scratched up and I can't say anything. Like, oh, they're no. If it's not good enough for you, then you can, whatever. I don't want to get this.
On the other hand, just kind of as proof that whatever she's doing is working, they're in their 90s.
That's the problem. I can't say anything. 92.
Yeah. I mean, okay.
Yeah. This is true. What is just to point it out here, JR says, the good news is that Mark's mother won't hear that insult, neither listen to their son's show.
Oh, do they not listen to you? They don't watch the show?
My dad is a huge supporter of the show. Huge. Cool. My dad keeps
Big shout out.
One of the heartbreaking things. He's such a fan of the show. He's a fan of this project. He feels that it's really something special, and he gave us a lot of credit for going from KGO to this new platform. Yeah. And my dad is a big fan. Now, my dad is drawn to political conversations. He's drawn to the news, and my mother as well to a degree, but she's more a creature of the arts. They're both, I think really special people in that they're drawn to the arts and politics and to so much. They're really like Renaissance people, and so dad is a super fan. So it's sad right now he's in the hospital. It can't, life's pretty awful, but hopefully he'll get back and someday be able to listen again. And my mom, somebody asked here, I see, how's your mom doing through all of this? And it's hard. It's very hard on her. It's very hard.
Have you been able to convince her to come home and take some rest at home?
You can make now some headway. She was with him really by his bedside for the first 3 days. And then finally they moved like not a cot, but some kind of, she was able to lie down, I think, after that. And now, so she spent a couple more days there, and now she's back here in the house every night, which is good. Okay. And my sister has to leave, which is why I'm going to go from a hotel back into the house. So I'll be here from now on for the foreseeable future, just to be with her. So that's the configuration. For those of you who are, keeping
we were
track.
talking the other day about regrets. I don't think you're going to regret this time. I mean, you're normally all the way across the country here in California. So you're so far, if anything is happening there. And so it's nice that you can be there and that you have this time with them.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's just no choice. This is so sweet from S. Jones. Mark, swinging by the live show, thinking of your dad. Thank you for doing remote. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for the thank you. I see your thank you, and I come back over the top with a bigger thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, all of you. Albert, do you have Law and Disorder loaded? Or could you?
I don't know if I have the okay one to do. Is this on?
What am I doing?
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
I think I'm supposed to see a graphic there, but I didn't really warn you. So in the future, we'll have the graphic for you. But we have to get our graphics ninja, who's in the North Bay, to make us up a temporary Law and Disorder graphic, because our graphics package has to be married to that audio, because we got flagged for the last audio. Again, I love to tell you guys a little bit of all the little problems we have to do. So that's it. But I wanted to let you know about something that was bizarre to me. A guy, you might have had this story, Kim, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating it, but the guy who was sitting inside his car in Oakland and had it broken into while he was inside the car.
Oh, I saw the story. I haven't done it here on the show yet. But
okay, cool,
wow.
Good. So a San Francisco dude said he had his car broken into while he was sitting inside the car in Oakland. Oakland cops are investigating this. Yeah. Tyson Wrench was parked in a parking lot on 98th Avenue between Airport Access Road and Empire Road. This is where you always park in Oakland if you're picking somebody up at the airport, or if you're like way early for a flight or something. This is exactly where you always end up. So he was parked in a parking lot on 98th Avenue between Airport Access and Empire. Oh, here he was, killing time before picking up a friend at the airport.
Yep.
All right. In a security camera video, someone gets out of a light-colored SUV, looks inside the car, drives away, but then backs up. They decide to come back. They crawl down below the back of the car, reach up above the license plate, and hit the button that pops the trunk. The person grabbed something out of the trunk, jumped back in the SUV, and drove away. The dude says he heard the trunk open and assumed he had accidentally hit the button himself. Inside the bag that was taken was laptop, medication, clothing, and passport. So of all the bags you could take, that guy took the right one. They came back and smashed my back window to try to steal something. I didn't see that when I first read the story.
That's the second day. They come back a day later because he has to park there because he's going to a meeting. So he parks in the same lot. They come back, they smash his window and break into his car again.
Wow. It was the next day? That's great. I love that. There was nothing inside the car the next day when they smashed. But that, to me, is one of the more bizarre stories of the Sam Bankman-Fried thing. His parents used their house to bail out Sam from prison. The only problem is they rent their house. So
wait, can you do that?
No, you cannot do that.
What?
Oh.
Yeah. Shortly before Christmas, FTX founder Samuel Bankman-Fried, indicted on federal charges of fraud and money laundering, was released on a $250 million bail bond that was secured by his parents' Palo Alto area home.
Wait, how much was the bail bond?
It was $250 million. So
wow.
You're right that there's
okay.
The implication is in your reaction. Well, the home can't be worth that much. You're right. I think
it's a portion. It's a percentage of.
It's a percentage. Exactly.
$250 million bond.
Yeah.
Yowza.
It's 20. It was 25 times bigger than Bernie Madoff's bail bond, and he was also Bankman-Fried isn't an alleged thing. Bernie Madoff, of course, the biggest Ponzi scheme in history. What hasn't drawn notice is the fact that Joseph Bankman and Barbara Fried are professors at Stanford Law School, are not typical homeowners. Their property that they used to bail out Sam is a faculty home provided by Stanford.
So they own the faculty home, but it's sitting on land that they rent from the university because you can't buy university land. So you own the house, but you rent the land under it.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a 3,000 square foot home. It's worth $3.5 million. 5 bedrooms. No word as to how many bathrooms.
But it is near the Whole Foods there in Palo Alto.
Were the Bankman and Fried pair ever to sell the house, or were the government to take possession of the house in the event of like a bail violation if Fried, skips, they'd have to sell it. And the pool of potential buyers would be limited to other eligible Stanford faculty because it's not really a house that anybody can buy. It's on the Stanford campus. So, Stanford will have to be involved in any sale. So that's to me, just a wild aspect to that Bankman-Fried thing. And finally, I was going to just tell you about the Half Moon Bay shooting detail that struck me. Apparently, there was a $100 repair bill that may have sent this guy over the edge. I mean, he sounds like he had pretty much stepped off the curb already. This guy, Zhao, 66-year-old. He said he became angry after being told by his supervisor at California Terra Garden, the site of the first attack, that he had to pay $100 to service a forklift that was damaged in a crash with a bulldozer. He told law enforcement that he became agitated, trying to explain that the crash was not his fault. He told cops that he then killed the supervisor and a colleague. This was the final straw, he said. The other victims were not involved in the dispute over the crash at all. This was about settling all those grievances. This is
I have
quote.
to say, and there's never any excuse for hurting a coworker, let alone opening fire. But doesn't it seem like this farm is pretty stingy? I mean, first of all, there are allegations that they're paying less than minimum wage, which they dispute. Then there's the whole thing today where they're now saying, okay, well, we'll build some better housing for our people. Their workers were living in squalor, and that was only coming to light because of this mass shooting. And now we hear this man has to pay for an accident at work. And that seems to me like just part of doing business where you insure your items at work and you know there's going to be incidents or wear and tear or what have you, but you don't charge workers for that. Am I wrong?
You're right and wrong.
Okay.
I think the reality is if you can prove, I mean, in some cases, it really is the employee's fault. Maybe you give, one strike, it's okay, we'll pay for it this time, but don't let it happen again. And then the next time, if you're doing damage to property, let me just get rid of this bot.
Oh, I saw it too. Sorry.
If you're doing damage to property and it's your fault, there has to be oftentimes a way to make sure that doesn't happen. But I'm with you. I mean, you'd think that you'd get some grace period or, you'd be allowed so many violations before they actually charge you for it. If it was $100 worth of damage, really, you're going to charge the employee? Now, on the other hand, if this guy is like not the best employee in the world and he's having accidents all the time, I understand. Sounds to me like there might have been a little bit of a grudge working there. He was a tough wrong with, and there might have been a little bit of that as well.
I just
Look,
think
Dirty Harry tore up all of North Beach in one of those Dirty Harry movies, and all they did was tell him to Callahan, take the rest of the afternoon and go think about what you did. I mean, there was they didn't even ask him to do any paperwork on it.
When Station X was a legit news operation. And I was in the KGO news car rolling around San Francisco and the entire Bay Area covering stories. If I had been in an accident, the station would have taken care of that. There was insurance on all those news cars to handle that. And so I guess that's what I equate it to is, I mean, when you have to drive a piece of machinery or a car for work, that work pays for the gas, work pays for the insurance. They shouldn't be coming to you with their handout.
He killed the coworker that caused the accident and wasn't willing to pay the $100. Then he killed the supervisor that wanted the $100 for repair. No. I mean, it's how by the way, these situations probably are covered by insurance in one way or another.
Yeah.
Point is, it was $100 dispute. It was part of probably a collection of petty arguments like that.
Yeah.
There's nothing about that job climate that you'd want. Nothing. Okay. So when we talk about the wage is just one way that you're being insulted on a daily basis. But to open fire on a community that also has to swim around in that kind of work environment, it just compounds the tragedy, I think. That is law and disorder for today.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Huge in Japan says $100 seems like an awfully small amount to fix some damage. And by the way, the $100 might have been the deductible. I mean, the rest might have been paid. Other damage might have been paid by the insurance. Don't know. But maybe Calvin Wong knows. He knows he knows a lot. He's our unofficial associate producer. They made $9.50 an hour, Calvin reminds us.
I love JR. I'm pretty sure your new boss can't provide that level of coverage, so drive safe. Wait, there's no Mark Thompson insurance program?
There really isn't. There's barely any program.
I protest.
Yes, it's hard out here. Yeah, it's like it doesn't make any sense. People are Al Anonymous is saying, and he could have taken one of his guns and gotten $100 for taking it to a police station. You know,
I don't think he was in that mental frame of mind.
Right. He wasn't about how do I come up with the $100. He was about how do I get back at the guy who's demanding the $100. So, I don't have time for Kamala Harris today. Should we do it tomorrow?
Oh man.
Yeah, Albert.
Probably tomorrow. But we have 4 minutes if you want to try to
sandwich it in.
Yeah, sandwich it in.
I will talk to John Roth.
Shout outs to get to before the end of the show.
Oh yeah. You know what? I'm going to save it because I think John Rothman and I are going to disagree on this. And it's always fun when we disagree. Let's try to get John Rothman for tomorrow. And then I'll talk to John about Kamala Harris. Okay. So
that sounds good.
Because I think John is a bigger Kamala Harris supporter than am I. Not to be down on Kamala Harris necessarily, but her viability as a national candidate, I just don't see it. And I think John might be more, but we'll find out. I don't know. Maybe that's wrong. So we'll ask John tomorrow. Hit me with a stinger, and then let me do some shout outs, and then we'll do our farewells. That's the plan.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It is the last day of the month. I want to thank everybody, first of all, before I acknowledge you personally, those who have stepped up and left us super stickers and super chats. Thank you for being part of this community that's formed around this show. Yeah. Thank you for Patreon and PayPal. That community we try to acknowledge at the end of our shows, and we are updating that list all the time. And those of you who leave more significant amounts there, everybody contributes whatever they can. I understand that.
Thank you.
Yes, we will make your font size slightly bigger, and we're just so appreciative on an ongoing basis of the support that this community is showing us. We need it. Honestly, we're crowdfunded. And so now let me give you some specific thank yous today. It's Dora Lopez, 1999. Dora.
Thank you so much.
I'll give you a British thank you so much, Dora. Thank you. From
Dora
all of our hearts here at the Mark Thompson Show.
I love your name, Dora.
Yeah, it is a great name. Vilma's got a great name. Come on, Vilma. Shout out to Vilma.
Big shout out.
Donation to help keep the show going for Mark's dad. Oh, that's so sweet.
Thank you so much.
Vilma's a great contributor here all the time. So appreciate your
thank you so much.
And thank you so much, Vilma, for the contribution today. Thank you. Yes. $9.99 from Luis. Best wishes to you and your family. Are you doing Thompson Tuesday with Tim tonight? No, I'll be gone off the air on KFI radio in Los Angeles. I'm usually there with Tim, and I won't be there today.
My bad. I'm sorry.
I'm going to call in. I may call in. Thank you for reminding me, Luis. I'm going to call in. It's a lot to keep track of. There are a lot of moving parts right now in life, but that might be a really good thing to touch base with Tim. So thank you, Luis. Shout out. Thank you. Thank you. $9.99. Thank you. Give you the big Chappelle. Thank you. Right on. Well, sadly, is there any amount that will make you cry? Probably not, but I would be. There's only one way to find out, Harry. You know, just got to keep upping the amounts, and maybe
$1 at a time, everybody. Yeah, let's just start with one. Okay.
There you go. Don't forget to smash the like button like a boss, says Sayo. Fantastic Mark T show fans. Thank you. Everybody, thank you for being here today. So tomorrow, John Rothman will likely join. We'll debate the national viability of Kamala Harris as a candidate. I also have some other stuff I want to get to up in Ukraine and the additional commitment and military commitment on the part of the U.S. in Ukraine. So we've got that Bay Area news as well.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Kim, thank you.
Thank you.
Albert, thank you. Everyone, thank you. Nikki's show is next. Go over to her channel, the Nikki Maduro Show. Until tomorrow. Bye-bye.
All right, now, everybody,